Welcome to the first of 3 wonderful projects that we're going to build in this section. And let's get started right away. And here I have a working demo of the project that we're going to build over the next couple of videos. And this project is called Guess My Number. And I went with this kind of retro design, like inspired by the old 80s game, just to make it a bit more fun. So as the name says, the goal of this project is to simply guess a secret number, which is between 1 and 20. So here in this input, we can type a number, let's say 10, then we click check, and then here on the right side, we get a message. In this case, it says that our guess was too low. Also, we can see that we started with a score of 20, and now after one failed guess, it decreased to 19. So basically, after each guess that we fail, the score decreases by 1. So let's try another one. It's still too low, and our score decreased again. Let's try 18. And now it's too high, so we get this different message. And now it's correct. So you see that we get this correct number message, the screen turns green, and also we now have the high score here of 17. So a high score is another feature of this small application. Then, if we want to play again, we can simply click the Again button, and it all resets everything except for the high score. So the high score is kept, and so if I'm quicker in this round, my high score will then become better. Let's start again at 10. So maybe I can do it faster. Well, I think I cannot. It's too high. And so my high score stays the same as it was before. Okay, so with this, I think you understood how this project works. So let's actually get to work. And as always, grab your starter files from the GitHub repository. I already have mine here. And then let's open up this folder. So that's this one. And let's start by taking a look at the files that we have here. First up, we have the prettier configuration. So exactly the one that we used in the editor setup section. And from now on, we will always use this configuration in every single project. Then we have an empty script. We have the CSS style, which you can take a look at if you're interested, and the same for the HTML. Now the HTML will actually be important because that's where we will find the class names of all of these elements that we're going to have to select to make this project work. But more about that later. And yeah, let's close up this sidebar and focus on our script here. So as you just saw, all of this interface here basically is implemented in HTML. So again, that is this document. Okay, and this whole HTML document is made up of smaller HTML elements. For example, this message that we see here is in our HTML, this paragraph here with the message class. And so now in JavaScript, we can actually select this element based on this class. So a little bit like we can select elements in CSS, we can do the same in JavaScript. And if you're not at all familiar with HTML and CSS, then please watch the HTML and CSS crash course that is in the previous section. Anyway, before we learn what the DOM and DOM manipulation actually are, let's quickly learn an easy way of selecting an element like this in JavaScript. And this is how it works. We write document.querySelector. So this query selector is basically a method that's available on the document object. And more about that later. Now into this method, we need to pass in a selector. And again, this selector is exactly the same selector that we would use in CSS. So we pass in a string, and we want to select the element with the class name of message. And so we need to write a dot and then message. Again, this is exactly how we would select the same element using CSS, right? Now, if it was an ID instead of a class, we would use the hash, right? But in this case, it is really a class, and so let's use the dot. And now we can quickly take a look at the result of this selection here using the console. And remember that we set up the CL snippet in the editor setup section. So I just write CL, and then I get console.log automatically here. Now, in case you skipped that section, you can always go back and see how I did that, or you can just write a console.log manually. So I give it a save, and now I do another thing that we learned in the editor setup section, which is to open up this project using the live server, right? So let's open up the terminal here by clicking New Terminal. Okay, let's clear it using Command K. And again, we learned how to do all of this in the editor setup section. So if you skip that, then please go back and watch that one first. Anyway, we see that we're already in the folder. So guess my number, that's exactly the folder. And now all we need to do is to type live server, hit enter, and then it will open up a new tab in our browser. So this is the demo here that I'm going to keep on the right side, and then here on the left side is the actual project that we are building. Of course, nothing works yet, but let's just open up the console. So inspect, console, give it some more space. And so indeed, we actually already have the P element here selected. So that's what we did here. So document.querySelector message. And so in the console, we then get basically this entire element. And as we hover over it, it actually even gets selected here on the page. Great. So this is the first basically DOM manipulation that you did. Great job. Now this element here itself is not really that useful. So instead, let's actually get this text. So this start guessing here. And we can do that simple enough. All we have to do is another dot and then text content. So this part here first selects the element. And so the result of this query selector method is going to be an element. And then on that element, we can read the text content property. And so that's why we use another dot here. And remember, when we have multiple dot operators, they are executed from left to right. And so first this operation here is done, then this selected here basically will get replaced with the element itself. And then on that element, we can read the text content property using another dot. So let's give it a save. This will then reload automatically. And yes, now we get start guessing, which is really just the text content of this element. Great. So now we kind of know how to establish this connection between our code and the user interface. So in other words, the HTML document that's being displayed in the browser. So this was a quick introduction to the DOM and how to select an element. But what is the DOM actually? And what is DOM manipulation, which is the big topic of this section? Well, let's find out in the next video.